KADUSKO, 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 KADUS.
Hello ladies and gentlemen, this is a recap of Crazy Blackmail Season 1 as we wait for Crazy Blackmail Season 2, which will be premiering on 15th December at Prayers Beyond Boundaries Ministries in NGARA. So, kama haujachukua tiketi yako, after this recap, make sure you visit www.madfund.com to purchase a ticket at a very friendly price. So, quickly without wasting any time, let us jump straight into the recap. The show starts with Mr. Odundo, who is the principal at Jembeni High School, and Madam Esther, who is a teacher at the same school. At the same time, she is a side chick to Mr. Odundo. KADUSKO, a student at Jembeni High School, at the same time a prefect, overhears Mr. Odundo talking with Madam Esther in a lovely way inside his office. KADUSKO removes a phone that he had sneaked it inside the school and starts recording Mr. Odundo while he's talking to Madam Esther in a lovely way. Unfortunately, Mr. Odundo happens to see a hand holding a phone at the side of the door. KADUSKO notices that Mr. Odundo has seen the phone and he decides to run away. Mr. Odundo tells Madam Esther,
You know, I think nimeona kamkono ka mtu kama kameshikilia simu hapo kwa mlango. So I guess someone was recording us.
What? Madam Esther becomes afraid up to a point that she tells Mr. Odundo that she's going to stop working in that school since an unknown person knows about their secret affair. And he or she might take the recording to Madam Sharon, who is Mr. Odundo's wife, at the same time a teacher in the same school. Luckily, Mr. Odundo manages to convince Madam Esther to continue working in that school by telling her that,
You know, we still don't know the intentions za mtu ameturecord. We don't know. Hata labda hajarecord kitu. Labda hajarecord anything. So, Madam Esther, just relax.
KADUSKO shares the information with Mustafa, a friend that he trusts. He later goes to Mr. Odundo and blackmails him.
So, Mwalimu,
Yes.
I only want one thing.
Which is?
I want to be the principal of this school for one day.
School principal?
Yes.
You? Kuwa principal? Wewe KADUSKO utakuwaje principal kusema kweli? Just to be honest, utakuwaje principal?
Mwalimu, it is very simple.
Tell me how.
Utanipatia hizi nguo zako nivae. Alafu mimi nikupatia hizi nguo zangu uvae, ukuwe mwanafunzi kwa hii shule yako, uende kwa class. Then mimi nikuwe principal kwa hii shule for one day. Nikuja nikufunze. What do you say about it?
Since Mr. Odundo doesn't want his wife to know about his affair with Madam Esther, he decides to do what KADUSKO instructs him to do. He gives KADUSKO his clothes to wear so that he can act as the school principal, while KADUSKO gives Mr. Odundo his uniform to wear so that he can act as a student for one day. KADUSKO goes to the class wearing Mr. Odundo's clothes. His fellow classmates are shocked to see KADUSKO wearing Mr. Odundo's clothes. He later introduces Mr. Odundo as a new student in their class, whereby the students become more shocked to see their principal wearing KADUSKO's uniform. As an act of mistreating Mr. Odundo, KADUSKO starts beating Mr. Odundo in front of the other students, claiming that he had given out an assignment, but Mr. Odundo had not done it.
Shika! Wote ushika vizuri. Umevaa box ya Manchester na una expect nisikupige? Una expect nisikupige? Ukipewa kazi na mwalimu.
Madam Sharon, who was in the next class, hears the screams and comes to the rescue, thinking that it was a student who was being punished. But to her surprise, she finds out that it was her husband, Mr. Odundo, who was being punished.
Miss KADUSKO, unafanya nguo za Mr. Odundo? KADUSKO, I'm asking, unafanya nguo za Mr. Odundo? What on earth is going on in this class? Unafanya nini nguo za mwanafunzi na amevaa zako?
I can explain.
Can't explain because what I'm seeing in this class, it's not making sense.
Can I please explain it outside tafadhali? Situongelee maneno nje.
Mr. Odundo walks with Madam Sharon outside the class so that he can explain to her why he was wearing a student's uniform. Mr. Odundo lies to Madam Sharon by telling her,
I was demonstrating something for my students for them to understand. So I decided kubadilisha nguo na mwanafunzi for me to do the demonstration.
Demonstration?
Yes, demonstration. Unajua baba alisema watu wa demonstrate. So I decided ni demonstrate in my own way, nisiende maandamano.
But when I entered in class, nilipata mwanafunzi akikupiga and you were screaming at the top of your voice. So what were you demonstrating there?
Madam Sharon doesn't look convinced. But Mr. Odundo tells her that they are going to talk about the issue later since he has to go to class and take his clothes. KADUSKO shares the information that he found out concerning Mr. Odundo to his classmates. They then team up so that they can torture Mr. Odundo. Mr. Odundo returns to class to take his clothes from KADUSKO, whereby he accidentally enters the class without knocking. Jonte with the other students suggests that Mr. Odundo should be punished by washing the class since that's misbehaving. KADUSKO commands Mr. Odundo to go for a bucket of water, wash the class, and apply oil to it. Mr. Odundo does as instructed unwillingly. Later, KADUSKO enters the class and finds Mr. Odundo washing it. As an act of more torture, he pours the dirty water where Mr. Odundo had washed and instructs him to go fetch water, come back, and rewash the class. Mr. Odundo refuses, but KADUSKO threatens him that if he doesn't want to do as instructed, then he's going to inform Madam Sharon concerning his secret affair with Madam Esther. So, Mr. Odundo remains with no other option but to rewash the class. As Mr. Odundo is on his way to fetch water, he meets with Jonte, who is a friend to KADUSKO and also his classmate. Mr. Odundo tells Jonte to help him get the phone that KADUSKO used it to record him with Madam Esther in the office. And in return, he will pay him 20,000 and on top of that, make him the school head boy. Jonte agrees to help Mr. Odundo and takes him to fetch water. Mustafa, who is a close friend to KADUSKO, overhears Mr. Odundo instructing Jonte to steal KADUSKO's phone in exchange of 20,000. After fetching water, Mr. Odundo goes back to class and starts rewashing it. After he is done, KADUSKO instructs him to carry each student's locker and return them inside the class. During lunchtime, KADUSKO goes to Mr. Odundo's office to eat his food, that is, meat and ugali. While on the other hand, Mr. Odundo instructs Jonte to go and get him students' food from the dining hall, since he does not have access to his food, which is normally taken to the office. Madam Esther goes to speak with Mr. Odundo in the office, but surprisingly, she finds KADUSKO eating Mr. Odundo's food.
Unafanya nini kwa office ya principal ukiwa umevaa nguo za...
Madam, excuse, can you stop shouting? Wacha kushout. Can't you see I'm busy eating? Chakula ipendi kelele. Ukipikia chakula kelele, inaweza kasirika ikataa kufika kwa tumbo. Ininyongea hapa kwa trapezium.
KADUSKO explains why he was in Mr. Odundo's office and shows her the video that he recorded. Madam Esther is shocked after KADUSKO also blackmails her.
If you don't want me to take this video to Madam Sharon, you must do whatever I'm going to ask you to do. Sasa.
She later goes and tells Mr. Odundo about the blackmail.
Aliniambia niende nikalale na yeye kwa dormitory. Na nikikosa kulala na yeye atonyesha bibi yako hiyo video. Na kimuonyesha, that will be the end of us.
But there is no need. Hakuna haja wewe kwenda kulala na yeye kwa dormitory. There is no need of that.
Unaniambia hakuna haja na wewe already shakuthreaten ukavaa nguo zake.
Mr. Odundo tells Madam Esther that she should not do what KADUSKO is asking her to do, since he had a plan of how he was going to get KADUSKO's phone so that he can no longer blackmail them. Mustafa, who had recently overheard Mr. Odundo instructing Jonte to steal KADUSKO's phone, and in return he will give him 20,000 and make him the school head boy, he approaches Jonte and makes a deal with him.
So mimi nilikuwa nataka hivi, uniingize kwa deal yako na principal. Mimi nitakusaidia kuiba hiyo simu. Maana hiyo simu ni yangu. Hiyo simu ni yangu. So kuiba ni rahisi sana, rahisi. Ni kama kunywa maji na kopo. Unaona? Alafu nikiiba hiyo simu, wewe uchukue hizo vitu upeleke principal. Akikulipa tu unigawia hizo pesa. Unaonaje?
Jonte has no otherwise but to work with Mustafa since he knows his plans. During the night while the students are sleeping in the dormitory, Mustafa and Jonte steals the phone from KADUSKO. In the morning, KADUSKO is shocked and terrified after finding out that the phone had been stolen, and now he no longer has something to blackmail Mr. Odundo with. Jonte decides to take the phone to Mr. Odundo, but on his way, he meets Madam Sharon, who was the teacher on duty on that day. Madam Sharon realizes that Jonte is wearing a home cloth inside the school uniform and instructs him to remove the t-shirt.
Jonte.
Yes, sir.
Kwa nini umevaa t-shirt ndani ya shati ya shule? We said very well that every student is supposed to be wearing a vest, not a t-shirt. Kwanza ni ya nyumbani ya butwa. Can you remove it? Harakisha, acha kunipotezea wakati. Harakisha. Wewe unaangalia nani? Ebu harakisha na ukote zote takataka kama nikuje. Wewe na wewe harakisha na...
While Jonte is in the process of removing the t-shirt, Madam Sharon sees the phone that Jonte was taking to Mr. Odundo.
Jonte, I'm asking, what are you doing with the school in a phone?
Sir.
Unafanya na simu shule? Nakuuliza, unafanya nini? Unafanya na simu shule? Shule ni amka. Can you stand up? Amka, kuja hapa. Unafanya na simu shule?
She takes it and instructs him to go and remove his locker out of the class since he will be going home for a suspension. Jonte, instead of going to the class, he goes to Mr. Odundo's office to tell him what had happened. Coincidentally, it happens that Madam Sharon decides to go to Mr. Odundo's office to take a suspension letter so that she can write for Jonte. But before she enters the office, she overhears Mr. Odundo talking with Jonte concerning the phone.
So Jonte, you want to tell me that Madam Sharon ndiye akona hiyo simu? Madam Sharon ndiye akona hiyo simu?
Yes.
Inu jinga gani Jonte? Inu jinga gani wewe? Why are you so careless, Jonte? You knew very well, Jonte, you know very well that I was blackmailed by KADUSKO and nikavaa school uniform ndio asiweze kwenda kuonyesha bibi yangu hiyo video. Now you are telling me that Madam Sharon ndiye akona hiyo simu. Is that what you're telling me?
Kwa tu kibahati mbaya mwalimu.
Stop telling me mambo ya kibahati mbaya hapa, sawa? Stop telling me that. You are supposed to be very careful with that phone. Very, very careful. That phone has a video that can destroy my relationship with my wife.
Madam Sharon goes back to the staff room and tells Madam Esther what she had just found out concerning Mr. Odundo, her husband. Madam Sharon later meets with KADUSKO and tells him,
Nilisikia Mr. Odundo akisema kwa hii simu kuna video yenye inaweza break our marriage. But I'm unable to watch that video because this phone has a password.
I mean mambo ya password sijui. Kama nitaba juu ya password sijui mambo ya password.
Come on KADUSKO, come on. I know you know that password because ulikuwa na hii simu. So, wewe niambie password ya simu niwachie video, alafu nitakulipa. Unaona aje?
KADUSKO accepts the deal after Madam Sharon says that she's going to pay him. On the other side, Madam Esther meets with Mr. Odundo and tells him that Madam Sharon has already found out about the video and she has gone to look for KADUSKO so that he tells her the password to the phone. Mr. Odundo walks out and decides to go look for KADUSKO and talk to him before Madam Sharon does. But when he arrives in class and asks the student where KADUSKO is, Madam Sharon alikuja akaita KADUSKO akaenda.
Wakaenda na yeye wapi?
I don't know, alimwambia tu amfuate. Mr. Odundo walks out of the class. KADUSKO later goes in Mr. Odundo's office and tells him that if he wants him to remain silent, he would have to pay him 300,000. Mr. Odundo says that it's a huge amount of money, but KADUSKO tells him that his wife, Madam Sharon, is willing to pay more than that money in order to find the truth. Mr. Odundo remains with no option but to pay KADUSKO 300,000 for him to remain silent. But after KADUSKO receives the money, he goes ahead and helps Madam Sharon to find the truth about Mr. Odundo by giving her the memory card that has the evidence that shows that Mr. Odundo is having a secret affair with Madam Esther. Madam Esther enters the staff room and finds Madam Sharon watching the video that shows that she is having an affair with Mr. Odundo.
Usione hivyo. Hey, look at me. Look at me. Usione hivyo. Nataka uone hivi. Very soon, I am going to divorce my wife and then I marry you.
Babe,
Alright.
are you really joking?
Joking?
Madam Esther walks out of the staff room and locks Madam Sharon inside.
Madam Esther! Madam Esther! Madam Esther, fungue mlango! Madam Esther! Madam Esther, open this door! Madam Esther, I swear I'm going to kill you! Madam Esther! Madam Esther, fungue mlango! Madam Esther! Madam Esther! Madam Esther, fungue mlango! Nakumbuka icheza na bwana wenyewe tena! Madam Esther, I'm going to kill you wewe! Wataicheza na bwana wenyewe tena.
Madam Esther runs to Mr. Odundo's office and tells him that she has resigned and she's going home since Madam Sharon has already found out about their secret relationship. Mr. Odundo becomes extremely angry and goes to look for KADUSKO inside the class. But to his surprise, he gets informed by Jonte that after KADUSKO received the 300,000, he sneaked out of school with Chantel and Angie. Madam Sharon enters inside the class and starts lecturing Mr. Odundo for having a secret affair behind her back.
This is how you're going to repay me!
No.
I've sacrificed a lot for you! A lot! Odundo, you had nothing! Nothing! Mi ndo nimekufanya ung'are hivi. I've sacrificed a lot! To an extent that after babangu amekufa kanyeje shule, I made you the principal and I chose to be a normal teacher so that I can prove to you how much I love you. But what do I get in return? Betrayal!
No, ma.
Betrayal!
I'm so sorry.
Acha kuniambia you are sorry!
Mr. Odundo and Madam Sharon's relationship comes to an end. On the other end, KADUSKO goes to spend Mr. Odundo's money with Chantel and Angie. As they are having fun, KADUSKO receives a phone call from Mr. Odundo, whereby Mr. Odundo tells him,
Yes, I will look for you and make sure that you pay for every single thing that you've made me go through. Everything, KADUSKO. So wherever you are right now, just know that it's not yet over. Just not yet. Tutakuja tu kupatana. Tukipatana na wewe.
Season 1 of Crazy Blackmail comes to an end, Mr. Odundo threatening KADUSKO by telling him it's not over and promises him that when they meet, he's going to deal with him. That's the full recap of Crazy Blackmail Season 1. Watch out for Crazy Blackmail Season 2, which will be premiering on 15th of December at Prayers Beyond Boundaries Ministry in NGARA. Tickets are available at www.madfan.com. Don't miss.